Hello and welcome back. I'm Mark from Mark on the Move, and today we're diving into the best things to do in Sydney. If you're planning a trip to Australia or making the very long journey here, this will help you prioritise. There's the obvious stuff, and then there's the stuff locals quietly prefer. I've spent decades living in this city, and while yes, we have the postcard icons, we also have experiences that are free, affordable, and, in my opinion, more memorable. This is part one of a series, so there's plenty more coming. But today, we're starting with 10 special places to visit in Sydney. At number 10, Cockatoo Island. This one isn't always on the standard tourist list, which is exactly why it's worth your time. Cockatoo Island gives you space, harbour views without 20 people stepping into your frame. It's just a 20-minute ferry from Circular Quay, and the ferry ride alone is part of the experience. The island itself has layers of history, from convict jail to shipyard, and you can easily spend a couple of hours wandering through tunnels, industrial relics, and cliff-top paths overlooking the harbour. Getting there is simple. Tap on and off with PayPass or an Opal card, around $7 one way. Ferries run roughly every 30 minutes, which means minimal planning required. You'll also find a UNESCO World Heritage convict site, a cliff-top walk with panoramic harbour views, hidden tunnels cutting through the island, glamping tents and heritage stays. Number 9. Sydney Opera House. Yes, it's obvious, and yes, you're going. But here's the thing, it still delivers. No matter how many times I see it, I still slow down slightly when it comes into view. It's one of those rare landmarks that actually looks better in real life than it does online. There are several ways to approach it, but here's my favourite. Start near the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. Then walk through the calm of the Royal Botanic Garden in Sydney. As you head down towards the water and take the harbour path, the Opera House gradually reveals itself. And when you step out onto the forecourt with the harbour behind you, it makes sense why it's become the symbol of Australia. Touristy? Yes. Overrated? Not even close. At number 8, it's the Bondi to Coogee Coastal Walk. This is easily one of the best walks in Sydney, and one of the most photographed for good reason. It can take up to 2 hours if you do the full stretch at a relaxed pace, so I wanted to show it realistically, not just the highlight reel. And just to be clear, you don't have to commit to the entire walk. You could simply visit Bondi Beach on its own, explore the cafes, grab lunch, sit on the sand, and call it a day. No judgment. If you're up for it though, the walk continues south past 3 other beautiful beaches, Tamarama Beach, Bronte Beach, and Clovelly Beach, before finishing at Coogee Beach, which feels like the most established beachside village after Bondi. In terms of difficulty, I'd rate the full walk about a 6 out of 10. It's not extreme, but there are some stairs, especially early on, and a few inclines. Give yourself around an hour and a half, longer if you stop for coffee, which you probably will. The landscapes are spectacular, dramatic sandstone cliffs, open ocean views, rock pools, and long stretches of cliff-top pathways that feel very Sydney. One thing to note, getting there requires a bit of planning. There's no ferry option to Bondi. The easiest route is a train to Bondi Junction Station, and then a bus, or an Uber if you prefer convenience. Expect around $15 to $20 for an Uber depending on traffic. It's popular, yes, but it's popular because it delivers. I'll leave you with some extended footage of this beautiful walk. Number 7. Watson's Bay. Watson's Bay feels like a quiet escape without actually leaving Sydney. It's located about 11 kilometres northeast of the CBD. It sits at the tip of South Head, right at the entrance to Sydney Harbour. Getting there is half the experience. A scenic 25-minute ferry ride from Circular Quay. And honestly, that ferry ride alone is worth it. This is one of my personal favourites. You've got cliff-top walking trails, historic monuments, ocean swimming spots, and sweeping views back across the harbour toward the city skyline. Make sure you visit Hornby Lighthouse, the striped red and white lighthouse perched dramatically above the cliffs. For a quieter beach experience, Camp Cove Beach offers calm water and a much more intimate setting than the bigger beaches. And when it's time to eat, you've got iconic waterfront options like Watson's Bay Boutique Hotel or classic seafood at Doyle's on the beach. It's relaxed, scenic, and just far enough away from the city to feel like you've escaped without actually having to. At number 6, we're visiting the Chinese Garden of Friendship and Darling Harbour. Tucked inside Darling Harbour, the Chinese Garden of Friendship is one of Sydney's most underrated pockets of calm. Darling Harbour sits right on the edge of the CBD and is easily accessed from Wynyard Railway Station. But my recommendation? Start your adventure in Pyrmont, the neighbouring suburb. You can arrive via Pyrmont Bay Ferry Wharf or the light rail stop, then walk across the Pyrmont Bridge. From here, you'll get great views over Barangaroo and Darling Harbour, and it's a much more scenic approach than just popping up from underground. While you're nearby, there's no shortage of attractions. The Australian National Maritime Museum, the Sea Life Aquarium, Wildlife Sydney Zoo, and Madame Tussauds are all within minutes. But if you're after something more peaceful, step inside the Chinese Garden of Friendship. Entry is around $12 for adults, with concessions available. It's intimate, layered, and surprisingly transportive. Winding pathways, koi-filled ponds, traditional pavilions. You forget you're in the middle of one of Sydney's busiest precincts. And if you're exploring more broadly around Darling Harbour, there are endless dining options. For something simple, you really can't go wrong with gelato from Anderson's or Gelatissimo. It's a lively area, but the garden gives you a moment of stillness within it. Kirribilli has that understated village feel, even though it sits directly across from the harbour from the CBD. If you're visiting between late October and November, you might catch jacaranda season. And when those purple blooms hit, it's hard to miss. McDougall Street becomes the centre of attention, lined with jacaranda trees and temporarily closed to cars during peak bloom. Bring your camera, it's one of Sydney's most photographed streets for a reason. The easiest way to get here is via Milsons Point Railway Station. From there, you're steps away from the waterfront and directly across from Luna Park. Kirribilli is beautiful year-round though. Think quiet streets, harbour glimpses, local cafes, and some of the best vantage points of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House. There is a ferry stop here as well, but train access via Milsons Point is generally the easiest, unless you're walking across the Harbour Bridge, which is also a solid option. At number 4, Sydney Harbour Bridge climb on a budget. Yes, you can climb right over the top with Bridge Climb Sydney. It's an incredible experience, and it will set you back roughly $340 to $400 Australian dollars, depending on the time and season. But if that's not in your budget, here's the alternative. Simply walk across the bridge. Start from the Luna Park Sydney side in Kirribilli and head towards the city. The pedestrian pathway gives you sweeping harbour views the entire way, completely free. About halfway across, near the southern pylon, you'll find the Pylon Lookout and Museum. Entry is around $25, and yes, there are stairs, quite a few. But once you reach the top, the panoramic view is exceptional. You're high enough to feel it, but not so high that you lose the detail of the harbour below. From personal experience, I can't think of a better vantage point over Sydney Harbour. You see the Sydney Opera House, the city skyline, ferries cutting across the water. It's layered, dynamic, and unmistakably Sydney. It's the premium view, without the premium price tag. Coming in at number 3, the Rocks and the Rocks Markets. The Rocks is non-negotiable. If you're visiting Sydney, you must come here. It's one of the oldest parts of the city, historic sandstone buildings, cobblestone laneways, and some of the best vantage points around the harbour. The Rocks Markets run Friday through to Sunday from 10 AM till around 5 PM. You'll find food stalls, local artwork, handmade goods, clothing, and the kind of souvenirs that don't feel mass-produced. You're directly beneath the Harbour Bridge, with the Opera House just across the water. Even without the markets, it's well worth wandering through this area. Duck into historic pubs, explore the laneways, and find one of the elevated lookouts for that classic harbour angle. If you're visiting between late May and mid-June, you may also catch Vivid Sydney in the evenings. This is when the harbour transforms with large-scale light installations projected onto the Opera House, bridge, and surrounding buildings. At number 2, catching a ferry from Circular Quay to Luna Park. This one might sound simple. It is simple, and that's exactly the point. For many locals, crossing Sydney Harbour becomes routine, but if you pause for a second, it's actually extraordinary. You depart from Circular Quay, glide past the Sydney Opera House, past ferries and cruise ships, travel directly beneath the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and arrive at Luna Park, all in under 10 minutes. In most cities, this would be a premium harbour cruise experience. In Sydney, it's part of the public transport network. Entry to Luna Park itself is free. You only pay if you want to go on the rides. But even just walking through the park with the harbour as your backdrop is worth the short trip. It's one of those small Sydney experiences that feels disproportionately impressive. At number 1, we're visiting the new Sydney Fish Market. Locals have been hearing about this project for years, and for good reason. The redevelopment reportedly cost around $836 million, and the result is striking. Even if seafood isn't your thing, this is worth seeing. The building itself is an architectural statement, open, modern, and designed to frame the water. As of early 2026, it's brand new and it feels it. Yes, prices can lean toward the tourist end of the spectrum, but you don't need to go all in. Grab something simple, sushi, fish and chips, maybe even a fruit cup, and take a seat overlooking Pyrmont Bay. It's lively, distinctly Sydney, and a great way to experience the city's connection to the water. If you'd like a deeper dive into the new fish market, I've got dedicated videos linked at the end of this one. And that brings us to the end of part 1. If you've visited Sydney, I'd genuinely love to know what stood out to you. Or is there somewhere you think should make the next list? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm Mark from Mark on the Move, and I'll see you in the next video.